about the war for global talent and what we've done at Brewdog over the last 2 years to really try and attract people to the business, to try and make things easier for our teams in site, and to try ultimately to make the candidate experience the best that it can ever be. So a little bit of a background before we get going. So I am hospitality through and through. Started as a 16-year-old, restaurants, bars, worked at Revolution Bars Group and had a first insight into what it's actually like to work for a business that really puts its people at the front of its company. And most of you will have been customers at some point in time for some of these companies, whether you're aware of it or not, with Stonegate, with people like Brewdog as well, and having so many different bars across the UK and across the world from our point of view at the moment. But I've always loved hospitality. It's a people-first industry, and it's something that we really try to embed in what we do here through our employee value proposition and through our recruitment journey. So where are we? So obviously we are talking global here. We are a global business. We have 4 breweries across the world, mainly centered in Ellen, which for those who don't know it, which is understandable, it's up just outside of Aberdeen. And it's actually only about 15 minutes away from where the very first Brewdog beer was brewed. So there's a real core part of our business around who we are. There's a real true feeling of Brewdog being a Scottish brewery, and how do we take that feeling across the whole world to make sure that people over in the brewery over in the US and Columbus, over in Brisbane, in Australia, and everywhere in between has that same sense of feeling, the same collective feeling from the very first moment that they interact with us as a candidate all the way through to joining us as an employee. We've got now over 100 different sites, and that's different bars and pubs across the world as well. So we're not just talking production, we're talking hospitality and everything in between, to getting the cans of beer into your local Tesco's, your local supermarkets, your local co-ops, all the way through to our incredible bars and pubs across the world as well. We've got to have a sense of standardization across the board to that. And I think as we come on to it in a few moments, you'll see how we've tried to connect the brewery, the feeling of the beer, all the way through that journey as people come through the business. So it is enjoyed worldwide, but it's quite a challenging business to get people on board with because we are quite polarizing. There is no two ways about it. Brewdog has put itself out there as a business over the last 14 years where people love or hate the company. There's a lot of things in between, but obviously from our point of view, it's about trying to find and attract the people who love the business, but mainly from our point of view right now, it's trying to attract the people in the middle who may not be aware of what we do from a people perspective and from a crew perspective to move them from maybe and passive to actually, I love this business, I want to work there and I want to come and apply to work for Brewdog. And we've done loads of bits from an employee value proposition, loads of cultural work, but a lot of that starts obviously from being here today from a recruitment point of view as well. So we have to create a standardized process. We are a global business. There's a brand, there's a core part of who we are. That standardized process is something that we're really passionate about getting in place, but obviously it has to be unique to all of the different countries, the different parts of the world that we work in. So we partnered 2 years ago with a company, an ATS system called Eploy, and it's one of the best moves that we've made as a business from a recruitment point of view because they're able to give us just that. So when we introduced the business, Eploy into the business, it was actually my very first day at Brewdog. So my first day was actually a 4-hour, 5-hour training session on everything Eploy, everything ATS. And for those that have ever done insights, I am a strong blue insights profile. That for me pretty much filled every single page of my notebook. My head was exploding all over the place thinking, this is incredible, but look at all of the potential that this could possibly bring us across the world as we look to scale this up. And we came at it first and foremost from a UK perspective. So just to give that a bit of context, we have about 85%, or had at the time, about 85% of our crew based in the UK. So understandably, everything that we started to do and initially did with the system was based around UK laws, UK attraction, UK kind of ways of working. But we quite quickly realized, as you'll see later on, that that doesn't work when we're looking at a global attraction and global perspective. It had to grow with us as well. Brewdog is growing massively, so we've actually increased the size of our business by about 50% over the last 2 years as we grew the business from kind of 30, 40 bars in the UK up to 70, and then started to add bars externally as well. And we are actually a really small people team. We've got 6 people primarily focused on not just recruitment, those 6 people, it's on everything from all the way hire to retire. So that's every single part of the journey. And as you can imagine, and as I'm sure all of you are knowing from being in recruitment and preaching to the preached here, every single step of that journey from a recruitment point of view takes ages, or it can take ages. So the lucky thing from our point of view is that we had a system in place that was able to give us a lot of automation, a lot of potential to grow with us, and the ability to really quickly adjust and be agile to the needs of our business, which was a really important thing to us. And that brings me on to automation. This is ultimately one of the biggest things that we've worked on over the last 2 years to improve that candidate journey, to really make sure that we're able to deliver for our candidates externally, for our managers internally, and realistically make sure that the business is set up in the way that it needs to be. So I've put down there the time, cost, and quality. And for anyone that isn't currently looking at your recruitment processes against those 3 metrics, you have to do that now. That's been one of the core things when we look at every single stage of our recruitment process. We look at those 3 things. So how quick are we able to get through that process? How cost effective can we get through the process? But also, and most importantly, what is the quality of that process like? Both internally for our managers and our hiring managers, of which there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people interacting with this system on a monthly and yearly basis, but most importantly for the people that are going through the process externally. So what I mean by that is, from your point of view, don't just do it yourself. Sit down with your hiring managers, go through your application process and see how easy it is, how slick it is, and where those barriers and pinch points are. But also, and if you've got a little bit of beer in your garage, it helps, but also go through it with people who aren't in your business. Go through it with friends, family, if you can sit them down and get 20 minutes, half an hour of their time to apply to a job of yours. Get you feedback that's unbiased on what your process is like from people who don't have a reason to say that it's great and you guys are amazing, you've done a great job, thank you so much for solving our problems. Okay, go at it from a really unbiased opinion, get as many people's views as possible, and also start assessing and understanding how your candidates are going through that journey as well. So again, one of the big things that we've done in the last few months is start to understand how our candidates enjoy or rate our experience going through the recruitment process. And that's everyone, whether they're hired or not hired at any point in the process. But as I mentioned earlier on, those are just a few of the different things that you end up going through as a recruitment team. All of those things pretty much before we put Eploy in place were done manually, which is absolutely crazy. But I'm sure there's a lot of you sitting there at the moment thinking some of those things are still being done manually in your businesses at the minute. They can all be automated to pretty much the full extent. Not saying everything can be taken out, but most of those things can be automated in some way, shape, or form. And you can see from that point of view on the right-hand side, the reduced time to hire by 4 days, which is around 6,000 days a year. So we've had people in our business 6,000 more days a year than we did 2 years ago, which when you're looking at manufacturing, when you're looking at production, when you're looking at supply chain, that's huge. Slightly easier in retail and in hospitality, when you have a load more people, your rota's kind of filled up and it's bulked up and you've got a few more people than you probably need because contractually people can come and go and change a little bit and flex. But when you're looking at things from a supply chain point of view, from a production point of view, and especially when you're looking at the challenges that we have been based up in Ellen, just outside Aberdeen, we're not in the centre of London. The talent pool isn't as large, isn't as great as you potentially might see in other businesses. So it's been hugely beneficial to us, and all of those things have come whilst we've been growing the size of the business and scaling the business up, increasing the size of the company by about 50% over the last 12 months. One of the big things that we started at 2 years ago was making sure that our managers and our hiring teams can do the process themselves. We have a small team. There's 6 people across the world. There was no way in hell that we would be able to recruit, even just for one new site opening, taking Brewdog Waterloo. For anyone that hasn't been there, shout out to the team there who are amazing. But we can't recruit for 220 people in just 1 or 2 weeks and have all of those processes manual and all being done centrally by 4 people in the UK. It's not going to happen. We gave the autonomy back to the hiring managers who are now fully involved with and fully in control of their own recruitment processes. That's been one of the biggest changes and benefits to the new system, being something that they all have access to, they all have the ability to own, they all have the ability to manage. And ultimately what that's been able to do is actually give the empowerment back to them to choose the people they want, when they want them, at the right time, on the right contracts, right pay rates, etc. And what that's done is really help us reduce the turnover as well from a 90-day perspective and also a 12-month map perspective. So we're not just seeing a benefit of more candidates coming through. Obviously, we'll talk about the employee value proposition in a moment. Once we've got people into the business, the empowerment that this is giving our managers is actually making them realize, I've hired this person. I've done every single step of this process. I want to make this work. Some of that is giving them a tiny bit more work to do. And yes, there's a little bit of buy-in. There's a little bit more about explaining why you're doing that. But once you've done that, they see the benefit to it. They can see their turnover coming down, and they're starting to fill their vacancies with people who they absolutely 100% buy into, and they're doing it on their own terms, which is brilliant. And I think from a system perspective, it's definitely something that you guys, if you've got the scale of business, definitely something that you guys should be looking into, trying to put it back onto the managers. So candidate attraction is really challenging in our world. Brewing is really difficult in itself. And then you've got a hospitality sector where there are so many businesses out there. There are so many choices for people to go at. You only need to walk down your local high streets or your cities that you're going into to see the tens and hundreds of different bars, pubs, different places that people could go to. All right, and how do we stand out from the crowd? So most of our candidates, we learned, go onto job sites like Indeed, an example, Caterer from a recruitment perspective in hospitality. And a lot of them, what they do is basically go down the list and apply to the first 15 to 20 jobs. Okay, we have to be realistic. We have to understand our candidates to know how do we improve this and how do we improve our journey. So one of the biggest things that we did and one of the things that's had the biggest impact is we flipped our job adverts on their head. So most job adverts that you end up seeing is, this is the job, this is the role, this is what we want from you. It's us needing something from you. We flipped it entirely so that the very first thing that they see is what we're going to give back to them. In a market where there are so many different jobs, and in London in particular, there's probably about 5,000 different bar jobs out there right now being advertised. We put our benefits at the forefront of their mind. So when they're going down that list of jobs, the 2 lines that they see of your job, so you've got 2 pages worth of things that you want them to know, the 2 things that they see first with the 20 jobs is the benefits that they get by joining Brewdog. And that's had a huge, huge benefit and huge impact on our application numbers. We've had a 90% increase in bars of our application numbers coming through to our brand. Now, I'm not just saying that one thing on its own gives you 90% better attraction rates, but combine them with your employee value proposition, the work that you do once they're into that job, because all that's trying to do is drive them to click into the job instead of just clicking apply on every other one that they see. It's to try and stop them in the tracks to go, I'm really actually interested in what this is about. I'm going to read more. And once they're in, then you're starting to talk about your employee value proposition, the culture that you set out as a business, and all of the other specific things about the job that might be different to the other 4,999 out there that are pretty much the same job title. We've done this globally, and it's worked pretty much across the board. There isn't one place from a global perspective that flipping those job ads hasn't worked. The AI now works in pretty much every single country. There's challenges along the way, though. So there's challenges not just with your the adverts themselves, but there's challenges with the nuance of your brand. So when you're looking over in America, some of the language that we used over there initially just wasn't right. It wasn't landing. People even didn't understand some of the basic things that we were asking them. So as I said, go back through your candidate journey and go through it with people in that sector, in that department, in that part of the world, wherever it might be, and get their thoughts and get their views on what it's like to go through. Because us here sat in the UK do not understand all of the different nuances behind the things that they might need over in Sweden, Norway, Australia, etc. So I've talked about employee value proposition a few times, and for those that may not have come across it before, essentially the long and short of it is making sure that what your crew feel internally is replicated by the adverts that you put out externally, and everything in between matches up. So we've done a load of work making sure that our crew are actually at the core of what that employee journey looks like externally. So we've sat down with groups of managers, we've sat down with groups of bartenders, we've sat down with brewers, we've gone through the process with them, and actually off the back of that, we realized that one of the things that we weren't actually celebrating was the crew themselves in that journey. It was really flat, it was really generic, it was really kind of words on a screen, and what we've tried to do in loads of different areas is actually bring that to life a little bit. You'll see from our LinkedIn strategy around Brewdog as the main Brewdog account, is that we used to just celebrate our great beer. Didn't work. It worked from a certain perspective from a marketing point of view, but it didn't work from a candidate attraction point of view on a social platform that is primarily all about people. So you'll start to see now, for anyone that wants to go onto the LinkedIn account, you'll start to see now journeys about, well, people's journeys through their time with Brewdog. You'll start to see more about what a brewer's life is like, what a quality assurance team member's life is like. We're trying to celebrate the great people that we have, the journeys that we can offer them, to try and actually bring it to life for people outside of the business. And again, all of these things come together to increase that those number of applicants by about that 90% mark for this year. One thing that we ended up doing was creating a real core campaign from our crew, about our crew, for people externally to understand Brewdog. And this is just one of the videos that we came up with to celebrate our crew members.
Brewdog makes beer for everyone. And our crew is open to anyone who believes in that mission. We've taken our beer from Scotland to the world through the sheer determination and focus of our people. People who know that attention to detail is what makes for personal bests. People who are committed to a team that is greater than the sum of its parts. Who care as much about the well-being of their crewmates as they do the things they create. People who know that if we're serious about saving the planet, we need to fight for it. In truth, there's no Brewdog mold. It's the uniqueness of our people that make this a brilliant place to work. Because being a Brewdog is more than a job. It's having a stake in our success, where we can own parts of the business and share in the profits. Because we know our bright future comes from doing right by our people. Our people are as unique as our beer. Don't take my word for it. Come and meet the crew and see for yourself.
We didn't even have to offer much beer for people to put their hands forward and say, yes, I want to be part of it. People absolutely love talking about Brewdog. People that we've got in our business are so passionate about the company. And once people are on board, we're starting to see that people really genuinely resonate to the messages that are coming through. Beer, people, planet is what we are about. That's our business, that's our ethos, that's what we have to focus on. And we've got those messages through every single touch point that people go through in our recruitment journey, in our recruitment process. And we keep those things at the forefront. We celebrate diversity in our teams, and we have to make sure that those things are core to who we are. And I'd recommend anybody to go back again through your journey, making sure that your culture, your values, your mission, your vision all align through every single touch point of that process. So one thing that we looked at was trying to reduce all of those barriers that you come across. And believe me, there are still barriers out there. I don't genuinely think that we'll ever be able to remove every single one of them. But how do you minimize those barriers? How do you make sure that you find the biggest barrier that's causing people the most amount of impact that you can impact quickly? And what do you do about it? So this industry, this business works really quickly. And again, I've talked about Eploy a couple of times already. The ATS that we have allows us, as the team at Brewdog, to actually fully amend the system ourselves. So we can go in without having to talk to the team at the systems team and the dev team there, and actually make changes to that process, changes to the system, basically within 20 minutes, half an hour. So when we're starting to come up against these challenges, when we're sat down with managers, when we're sat down with crew members that have been through the journey, we can make the changes immediately if we think that they're the right thing to do, which has got a huge benefit. When you're getting hundreds, if not thousands of applicants every single week, you can't wait 2-3 weeks for a dev team to come and make that change for you. You have to be able to do it quickly. This business doesn't sit around. It doesn't stay still for very long. If you can't find something that works for you and matches that speed, it's not right. You have to assess and go again. And one of the big things which I'll mention in a moment is we've looked at those initial stages of the recruitment process to make it as quick and as easy and as simple as possible. Because we know that once we've got people into the recruitment process, once they are in front of a human being that's so passionate about Brewdog as a hiring manager, we know they're in. But we have to remove the barrier at that initial stage, and we'll talk about what we're doing at the moment to try and make that even better. So I've talked about the values, I've talked about culture. This has to be core to who you are, and it has to be genuine. It has to come through your recruitment process. So do it. Put your lens up in front of yourself. Hold a mirror up to yourself and your business and your process, and make sure those things align. Whatever it is that you're sticking your hat on, saying that is the most important thing to us, make sure you talk about it, celebrate it, be proud about it. Be passionate about it, and make sure that you're putting that in that recruitment process. Be true to yourselves and go full steam ahead and get in there and make sure that it's actually coming through. And trust it. Trust what you do. So we have a big turnover. Hospitality itself has a big turnover, normally around 90 to 100% turnover for crew members within hospitality every year. That's average. That's okay. We're down at about the 65%, 70% mark for a hospitality business. Looking at retail, PLC, so what we call brewing, what we would look at production, supply chains even lower than that. But within the industry, it's really quite high. We're proud of where we've got to, but a lot of that starts in that recruitment journey. So if you're not true to who you are and what that crew member will feel when they're joining your business and on day 1 or day 90 or day however many, then that connection, that bond that you have ultimately breaks. So the emotional contract that you have created with that candidate from the moment that they've started to interact with your job board, your careers website, your whatever it might be, it has to be the same from then all the way through. We're really proud of where we've got to from not just a candidate perspective and crew perspective with the best companies, but also the Top Employer Award, actually demonstrating that the work that we've done to put the new ATS system in place, to improve the automations, to really dig deep into every single stage of that process has come out from the accreditation this year with Top Employers. And it's something that we're really genuinely proud of and something that I would fully recommend, even just from a process perspective. Top Employers or anything else like that accreditation-wise almost gives that external lens again to make sure that you are doing what you're saying that you're doing. So go through it, put yourself through something like that and make sure that you're challenging your processes with someone that's accredited to come and do so and giving you the biggest amount of critique that you can. So a couple of last bits to finish off, really. What's next from this business? What's next from our process? So we've been working with Eploy for the last couple of months on putting in a situational judgment test. For those that don't know what it is or haven't potentially come across it really quickly, essentially it's a multiple choice questionnaire that people as a first stage application of the application process will engage with that is fully aligned to our brand, fully aligned to our culture, fully aligned to the role that they're applying for. So every one of those situations that they're put into or asked about align to the day-to-day things that they will be doing within their role. And off the back of it, you will end up getting a score for each candidate, and we will be able to actually start looking at the people who score the highest in that, aligning to our brand and culture, but also aligning to the role that they've applied for, which when you're looking at the triangle of time, cost, and quality, impacts every single one of those measures massively. So we will move away from the first touch point for the candidate once they've applied to a first response of around 3 days, give or take, to 2 hours. So instead of having to wait 3 days in a market that moves so quickly when they've applied for 20 different jobs, they will get a response from our system within 2 hours that invites them and welcomes them to the first stage, or actually technically the second stage in their mind, of our application journey. It buys them into the company, but also it makes sure that if people don't want to go through that and don't want to spend 10, 15 minutes going through the journey and going through and aligning themselves to our brand and business, then we don't want them to apply. And that's okay. There's a lot of other places out there that they can go to, and there's a lot of great businesses out there that they will find. They just weren't right for Brewdog. And that is okay. Doesn't matter. And I think being comfortable with that not every single person that comes to your website or your jobs board or your career site, etc., not every single one of them is going to get the job. Not every single one of them is going to be truly aligned to you. But that is okay. And we know that that's something that we're able to kind of pass off as an aside because these 3 areas are going to be impacted massively by what we're putting in place. It improves also added benefits around bias. So we're moving to a blind process so that people won't see people's past roles. They won't see CVs. They'll just see a name on a piece of on the system with the score. And once they've started to invite them to an interview, at that point it'll start loading up all of the information about that candidate. It's an incredible journey to go down. It takes a lot of work to put in place, but we know that those 3 areas that we measure so closely will be impacted so positively by what we do next. So this is a really difficult part of, I suppose, Brewdog's lifetime. So we've gone through COVID, we've gone through a real big challenging point from a culture perspective, from a marketing perspective. We've now come through all of those things. We're looking at expanding to the places, into places where we're not currently, don't currently have a footprint. But all of those things are being done in a climate that's really challenging from a cost point of view. So we have to make sure that we squeeze every single last bit out of the systems that you have to make sure that you're using them cost effectively. So what I mean by that is go and speak to your suppliers, go and speak to the people that give you the systems that you've currently got in place, and make sure that you ask the questions of what more can we get out of it. So if we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't have known about situational judgment test options, which will give us all of those benefits in the next year or 2. There are options out there within the businesses that you've got to try and squeeze what you can out of it. But as soon as you get to a point where you're going, that's it, I can't get any more, but I want more or need more, that's the time that you have to look elsewhere and look at what is out there from a market perspective. We're really lucky to have the system in place that we have. Okay, so just to summarize, really, there's a few key takeaways from our point of view. So have a system that's future-proof. Don't just find one that's okay now. Where do you want to go to as a business? Where do you want to go as a HR team, as a recruitment team, as a TA team, whatever you might be in? And where do you want that to land you from a system point of view? And make sure that you've got the right thing in place. And if you don't, find it and get it. Have a strategy that is core to you and is true to you and is genuine, because trust me, from a turnover perspective, from a HR point of view, if we don't align people's expectations from day one, we're going to see our turnover increase, 30 and 90-day turnover increase massively. Advertise what is beneficial to your candidate. So know your candidates first and foremost. The best way of doing that is knowing the people that you've just brought on board. So get to understand who they are, what they liked about the process, what's the biggest thing that's attracted them to your business, and make sure that you're ramping that up massively in future. And the biggest one from our point of view is automate. Pretty much everyone in this room will have either heard of or used ChatGTP or something similar to that over the last 6 months. That's the way that we're starting to think. So we're trying to make all of those automations, trying to improve all of the processes that we've got so that the few people that we do have focusing on recruitment and on our people can be put best to practice and to be actually using their skills, their knowledge to enhance people's journey, enhance people's time here at Brewdog, instead of doing the processes that could and should be done by your systems. And that's it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.